Welcome back, guys. In this tutorial we're going to understand how to configure the router as DHCP server, right? So the main function of DHCP server is to automatically assign IP addresses to the host devices, right? So there are two ways to assign IP address to the host devices. The first way, let's say two ways. So the first way is to assign IP address manually, and another way is to assign IP address automatically. Okay, so for the manual way, we just click on the PC like this, then we come to desktop, we come to IP configuration, then we configure a static IP address. It's not only IP address but to network parameters such as subnet mask, default gateway, DNS server, right? And for the case of automatic assignment, we just click on the PC here, right? Then we come to IP configuration, then we enable DHCP, right? Okay, so guys, today we are going to understand how to configure the router here to be the DHCP server to all the host devices in this network. Okay, so before we can begin, kindly guys, suppose you have not subscribed, do us that favor, click on the subscribe button, like our video and share. Alright, so we are good to go. DHCP server. DHCP basically stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, DHCP, let me just say here, DHCP stand for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Okay, so this technology, or rather this mechanism, allows us to configure IP addresses and the network parameters to the network devices in the network automatically, okay, such that all these computers, or rather host devices in the network, will obtain IP addresses automatically from a DHCP server. So in this case, the router will be our DHCP server, okay, and these client devices, these host devices, will be DHCP client. We have DHCP server and DHCP client. The router will act as DHCP server, and now these devices, the host devices, not the switches, the host devices, computers, okay, will be DHCP clients, right? Okay, and another thing that I want to say, whenever you connect a host device in a network, let's say that network, there is a DHCP server there, okay, and that device, you have set the IP configuration to be dynamic. You've ticked DHCP, just like in this case, you've ticked DHCP like this, okay. That particular device will exchange some messages with the DHCP server in that network. The first message that this device here will send is called DHCP discover message. It will try to discover whenever there is any DHCP server in that network, okay. That is a broadcast message. This computer here will send a broadcast message to all the devices in that network, okay. This device will receive that broadcast message, this device, all the devices, okay. So the red device, is a DHCP discover message. The red device is the one that will reply. It's the router. The router will reply with the DHCP offer message, okay, to these host devices. Let's assume you've just connected it and we have already configured the network to have DHCP configuration mechanism, right? Okay, so the router will reply back with the DHCP offer message. So let me just write them here. Process DHCP process, okay, all messages. So the first part is that the client, DHCP client, will try to broadcast a DHCP discover message to all the devices in the network. Okay, the devices, all these devices will receive that message. Okay, and let's say it goes here, and PC0 will say, this message is not meant for me. It will drop it. Okay, this also will drop it. All these devices will drop it. The only device that will accept and reply is the DHCP enabled device, which is in this case the router. So the router will reply. Let me just say, so number 2, DHCP server replies with DHCP offer message to the client, the new client in the network, the new DHCP client in the network. Okay, and it will say, oh, DHCP server is here, so it will request. Okay, step 3, DHCP client sends DHCP request message, okay, to the DHCP server. So the communication is strictly between these two, the DHCP client and the DHCP server. Pretty much simple, guys. And the DHCP server will receive that request and acknowledge. It will reply with the let's say DHCP server replies with DHCP acknowledgement message. Okay, after the router or the DHCP enabled device has replied with the acknowledgement message to the DHCP client, the DHCP client will receive the network parameters such as IP address, default gateway, DNS server, subnet mask, and it will be configured automatically. Okay, alright guys, so that's all about the theories we have. So guys, let's go to the practical part. I already drew a topology here. As you can see, we have 3. I want to create 3 LANs, 1, 2, 3, and the router at the center. This router will act as the DHCP server. Okay, and we want this particular LANs to be in different networks. So basically what I'll do, I like separating the boundaries. So fill color, you select, and let's choose blue, and place it this side. And now which color again? Yellow, strong yellow, and we place it here. Okay, and finally let's choose that one. I don't know the color, so that is the last one. Okay, so I'll close this one. Let me align them very well this way. Okay, so guys, what we want to do now is to comment. We want to comment, let's say this department, this is called IT department. Okay, and the network here we want to 192.168.1.0/24. okay, and this one is finance department. Finance, the network should be 192.168.2.0/24. and finally here should be, let's say, HR department. HR, then the network here should be 192.168.3.0/24. okay, there will be no configuration in the switches. The only configuration we will do is in this router, on the router I mean, okay, DHCP server configuration, okay. And the first thing that we must do when you want to configure DHCP server, okay, you must enable that service, right? So let me just comment so that I can show you how to start configuring DHCP server. I'll comment and say here, the first thing that you must do is to specify a command called service DHCP. This command here will enable DHCP configuration, okay, although by default is enabled, but in case somebody will disable it accidentally, or you are the new network engineer and the predecessor disabled it, so what you do, you enable it using which command? Service DHCP, okay. Now the second command basically talks about the pools that you wanna create. For example, when this is IT department, that is pool 1, then pool 2, pool 3. So let's say this is pool IT. So what you do, just say IP DHCP pool. Let's say IT debt, okay. And for the case of finance, you just write finance like that, okay. Then you write the network, okay. Network 192.168.1.0, then subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, okay. Then again you write the default gateway, okay. The default gateway in this case, guys, the default gateway will be the IP address of the connecting router's interface. For example, for this LAN, the default gateway of that pool will be the IP address of this interface, and the same way for this one and this one, okay. So let's go on. Now for the default gateway, you just write default router, okay, 192.168.1.1, okay, default gateway. Then finally DNS server, you just write the same way as you can write the same way as the default router, okay, default gateway, no problem, okay. So this is the way to configure the DHCP server, okay. Remember, this way will only assign IP address automatically to this network, okay. So we need to do this, the same thing here. We need to do the same for finance and HR, okay. So allow me just to place it there and we start configuring, guys. I have not done any configuration in this router. What I'll do next is to turn the interfaces up. As you can see, the router's interfaces are by default in shutdown state, so we need to turn them up. So I'll click on the router and I go enable config T, and then interface range, because there are 3 interfaces and we want to do the same parameters. This one is gig 00, gig 01 and gig 02. I click on the same router and say interface range gig 00 to 2, okay, gig 00 to 2. Then no shutdown, hit enter, then do right, it's done, okay. As you can see now they have turned green, okay. All right, so what is next? We said the configuration will be only in the router. The next thing, guys, is to configure the IP address to the router's interfaces, okay. For this interface will be in this network, this interface for this network, and this interface for this network. So let's start with gig 00. So for gig 00, says exit, interface gig 0/0, hit enter, then IP address 192.168.1.1, the default gateway, okay, 255.255.255.0, you hit enter. Okay, now we go to gig 02, gig 01, I mean gig 01 should access the network here. Gig 01, yeah, gig 01 should be 2, gig 01 2.1, 2.1. okay, then finally gig 02 should be 3.1, gig 02 should be 3.1, okay, do right. So we are done configuring IP addresses to the router's interface. So what's basically remaining is to configure DHCP server, which is pretty much simple. We will not touch anything on the switches as per now, but when we will be configuring DHCP server and VLAN, you know, we will touch something on the switch, but as per now, let it the way it is, right? Okay, we said whenever you want to configure DHCP server, the first thing that you do is to enable the service. Let me place it here, service DHCP, right? Then you create the pools. Okay, let's say there are departments, so for each department can represent a pool. For example, IT department, pool IT dev. Then you assign the network just here, just like here. Then the default router, the default router is the default gateway, which is this interface. Okay, then finally DNS server, this one you can place it the same as default router. For the beginners, kindly just apply that, but in some projects you'll be told to use this kind of IP address for DNS server. Okay, all right. So guys, this command here will set DHCP configuration, and these host devices will be able to obtain IP addresses automatically. Okay, so let me just configure it. I'll click on the router and say exit, and now service, you just hit tab whenever you start typing some command, but you know, you might be challenged for some letters, or you know, I don't know, just press on tab. Okay, service DHCP, like that, and you hit enter. Okay, DHCP has been enabled. So what is next? The next thing is to create pools. We'll be creating 3 pools: pool IT, pool finance, and HR. So let's start with pool IT and assign the parameters there first. IP DHCP pool, okay, IT dept. Okay, and you hit enter. As you can see, it has sent to DHCP config. Okay, we are finishing on this side first before we can go to the second and the third. Okay, the network 192.168.1.0, subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. okay, network. Okay, you hit enter. Then default router, after writing def like this, just press on tab. Okay, default router should be 192.168.1.1. okay, then DNS, just press tab like that one, 192.168.1.1. hit enter and exit first, then do right. Okay, and now guys, let's test if DHCP configuration is applied on these devices. Remember, on this device it's static. Okay, so let's just click on DHCP and give it time, guys. As you can see, guys, it has taken what we have configured there. So IP address has been configured successfully on this host DOS dynamically. .2, because .1 was for default gateway and DNS server. Okay, then let's go to the other PC, go to desktop, and DHCP. Let's give it time, it will pick. As you can see, .3, same thing. So let's do for finance department and HR department. And now I'll say we have already enabled DHCP. So what we proceed to is IP DHCP pool. Okay, so let me just delete this. IP DHCP pool. Okay, finance department. Guys, pretty much simple. Just this simple command we just modify according to the topology. Okay, I'll push it up again. Finance depth. Okay, you hit enter, and now network 192.168.2.0. okay, remember the network here was this one, 192.168.2.0/24. okay, don't forget, pretty much simple. Then subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. okay, you hit enter. Sorry, oh yes, 25. I should have 255. okay, and you hit enter. It's good, right? Then what do you do next? Default router should be 192.168.2.1. okay, then DNS should be also 192.168.2.1. okay, and you hit enter, then exit. Let's finish for the third category of HR department. IP DHCP pool HR depth. okay, hit enter. The network 192.168.3.0. okay, these are here. okay, pretty much simple. Then 255.255.255.0, hit enter. Default router should be 192.168.3.1, default router gateway. okay, then DNS 192.168.3.1, pretty much simple. Exit and do right. So let's test them together. Test the PCs on this side and the PCs on this side. okay, I'll just click here, P configuration, then you come to DHCP, give it time. As you can see, 2.2, and the parameters have been set automatically. okay, you go to the next PC, DHCP. As you can see, 2.3, and all the parameters have been set successfully. Now for the last category, go to DHCP, just give it time. As you can see, guys, it's working, guys, it's working, guys. So what you must understand here, whenever you're configuring IP addresses to the router's interface, that connecting interface should be the default router when you're configuring DHCP server. okay, for the respective LAN. okay, and now guys, there's a final concept that I want to discuss here in DHCP configuration. Assume that in your organization, there are some devices that you want to assign a static IP addresses. okay, or there's a range of IP address that you want to exclude from being assigned to host devices. What do? We want to specify another command. So that command basically, finally, is called IP DHCP excluded addresses. Okay, then you give the range. Let's say for this network we want these host devices to be assigned IP addresses from .11. okay, so I'll exclude 192.168.1.1, then just space, and now the limit 192.168.1.10. okay guys, this command here, let me just place it here so that you can see very well. This command here, IP DHCP excluded addresses, should be addresses 192.1.1 to 192.168.1.10. okay, they will be excluded and they will not be assigned to any host devices automatically, though they can be assigned to host devices statically or manually. okay, just this way, 192.168.1.1 space, no hyphen, just space, then 192.168 starting and ending. So any IP address in this range should not be assigned to any host devices dynamically. okay, so I'll go to the route again and say IP DHCP excluded addresses, like that. Just hit tab whenever you start typing a command that you don't know how to write in full. Type it on tab. okay, 192.168.1.1 to 192.168.1.10 should not be assigned to any host devices automatically. This range from 1 to 10. okay, and you hit enter. Then what about for this case, finance department and HR department? okay, you type the same thing, and now just we modify here 2. Here also you modify 2, you hit enter. Finally for 3, here also you modify 3. DHCP excluded addresses, and do right. And now guys, whenever we go back, let's just go back, just return to static again and DHCP. It will start from 11. As you can see, the range now will be assigned to IP addresses automatically, will start from 11 going forward. okay, also this one, we just click on IP configuration, go to static again, then come to DHCP 12. As you can see, pretty much simple guys, the concept of IP DHCP excluded address. Commonly asked question. okay, click on the PC again, now click on static and return to DHCP. As you can see, 2.11, because from 1 to 10 were excluded. okay, then P again, go to static, come back to DHCP .12. guys, pretty much simple, very simple, very very simple. And this is a very very important class guys. As you can see, this is a very very important class, because most of our projects we will implement DHCP server. okay, we'll see. As you can see guys, we are done configuring DHCP server. okay, and what you must understand first guys, just for a recap, this is a very important class, but some people always miss it because just for simple misunderstanding. The first thing that you must do whenever you have a diagram like this, you have not configured anything. Let's assume that. okay, the first thing that you do, kindly change the state to the router's interfaces to hub, because by default they're always in shutdown state. That's why they always red. okay, so make them hub. After that one, configure IP address the router's interface. okay, and that particular IP address should act as the default router when you are configuring DHCP server. Okay, remember in this router we have created how many pools? 3 pools, 1 2 3. And let's just go to the router again. I'll just type do show start. As you can see, guys, we have 3 pools here: IP pool, this one, and this one. IP pool IT department, IP pool finance department, IP pool HR department, and the parameters have been set here. And now the range of excluded addresses, they are here, as you can see. Pretty much simple, guys. Don't forget, just this simple command, this one, you include it 3 times whenever you have 3 LANs. Okay, and it will be different when you will be configuring DHCP server and intervenant. Okay, but what you must know here is the first thing you do is to enable DHCP, then you create the pool, IP DHCP pool, this one, then you assign the network parameters such as the network, the default router, and the DNS server. Then finally, kindly exclude a range of IP address that you want that particular server not to assign to the host devices automatically. Okay, and guys, that will mark the end of today's lecture. Suppose you like our video, kindly subscribe to our channel, comment below, and share our video. Bye, and see you again in the next class.